There is something deeply paradoxical about truth. It liberates and destroys at once. The moment you speak it, you set in motion two opposing currents, one of illumination and one of resistance. For the truth is fire, and those who have built their houses from lies will always despise the one who carries a torch. Honesty is not merely a moral virtue, it is a psychological revolution. It is the alchemical flame that separates gold from impurity. Yet, when you embody honesty, radical, uncompromising, soul-level honesty, you become a mirror that exposes others to their own shadows. That is why they hate you. Not because you are cruel, but because you remind them of what they buried. I have observed throughout my years of clinical practice and inner exploration that the human psyche is not built upon truth, but upon compromise. Every personality is a carefully constructed illusion, a mask, a persona woven from fragments of truth and convenient falsehoods. Society rewards those who maintain this mask, who conform to the shared dream of propriety, politeness, and collective delusion. When an honest person steps into this delicate theater, their presence is an earthquake. It destabilizes the fragile architecture of the self that others have labored to maintain. Thus, your honesty burns not only through words, it burns through existence itself. But honesty is not an easy virtue. It is not sweet, nor comforting. It is bitter medicine for the soul. To live honestly is to allow yourself to die many small deaths. The death of the image, of the need to please, of the wish to belong at any cost. It is to walk naked through a world obsessed with clothing, its wounds. This is why so few choose the path of authenticity. To be honest, in a world of lies, is to declare war on illusion. It is a lonely, sacred war. And in this war, the battlefield is the soul. When you speak the truth, you do not merely describe reality, you reveal it. And what is revealed is often terrifying. You strip away the paint that hid the cracks. You unmask the pious saint to expose the sinner beneath. You uncover the coward hiding inside the hero. And in doing so, you force others to confront the darkness they so carefully avoided. The hatred that arises toward you then is not personal. It is archetypal. It is the collective shadow rising against the light. Every culture has crucified its truth-tellers. Socrates, Christ, Giordano Bruno, all were condemned, not because they were wrong, but because they were too right. This hatred of honesty is rooted in the psychology of projection. When a person cannot bear to see a truth within themselves, they cast it outward. They call the honest one arrogant, cold, judgmental, or dangerous. But in truth, they are describing their own fear of self-recognition. The honest person functions as a symbolic mirror. The more light you carry, the more sharply others see their own darkness reflected. And so they turn away, or worse, they try to shatter the mirror, but the shattered mirror still reflects. Its fragments gleam even in the dust. There is, within every individual, a deep longing for truth, and an equally deep terror of it. This is the dual nature of the psyche, the longing for integration and the fear of dissolution. The ego, by its nature, resists the light because the light exposes its limits. To be honest with oneself is to admit ignorance, weakness, jealousy, lust, envy, all those energies we prefer to exile into the unconscious. Yet the unconscious does not remain buried forever. It seeks expression, and when you speak honestly, you call it forth in others, you awaken what they try to bury. This is why honesty feels like an attack to those still identified with their lies. It is not you they hate, it is the awakening itself. Let us look deeper into the archetypal structure of this phenomenon. The honest man or woman represents the figure of the truth bringer, an ancient archetype that recurs throughout myth and scripture. Prometheus stole fire from the gods to give to humanity, and for that he was chained to the rock. Christ spoke of the kingdom within, and for that he was nailed to the cross. In every age, the fire of truth provokes the same reaction: gratitude from the few, wrath from the many, for truth burns the false comfort of ignorance. It demands transformation, and transformation is always accompanied by suffering. When you embody honesty, you step into this archetype. You become the Promethean rebel, the Christic redeemer, the hermetic alchemist who dares to turn lead into gold. But you also inherit the wound of rejection. You are cast out not because you are evil, but because you carry too much light. Your very being becomes unbearable to those still asleep. And so the path of the honest is a crucifixion of the ego. But what follows crucifixion is always resurrection. Out of the ashes of rejection, the self is born. In analytical psychology, we speak of the individuation process, the path toward becoming whole. Honesty is the cornerstone of this process. Without it, there can be no integration. To individuate is to tell the truth first to yourself, then to the world. It is to reconcile what you are with what you pretend to be. The shadow cannot be integrated until it is acknowledged, and acknowledgement requires honesty. Yet the first reaction to truth is always denial. The psyche resists like a wounded animal. It bites the hand that heals it. That is why those who begin the path of inner work often experience great turmoil, dreams filled with chaos, conflicts in relationships, the collapse of false identities. The fire of honesty is purifying, but it burns before it enlightens. Consider the dream of a man I once counseled, a respected scholar, admired for his intellect, but deeply fearful of vulnerability. In his dream, he found himself walking through a library that was on fire. The books, his knowledge, his reason all turned to ash. And yet, in the center of the inferno, stood a child, unarmed, holding a small candle. That candle was the flame of honest being, the original self uncorrupted by persona. The dream revealed what the conscious mind refused to see. that true wisdom arises only after the destruction of false knowledge. His honesty, the willingness to admit ignorance, became the beginning of his rebirth. So too it is with all of us. To be honest is to allow the old world to burn, to say, "This is who I am," even when it offends the image others have of you. For honesty is not merely about speaking facts, it is about embodying alignment. It is a vibration of integrity that reshapes reality itself. When you live honestly, you alter the field around you. People sense it. Some are drawn to it like moths to flame, others recoil. The moths that burn are those who mistake your light for comfort. But the light of honesty does not comfort, it transforms, it demands death to illusion. Those who hate your honesty are still worshipping their illusions. They have built altars to false gods, success, reputation, approval. Your truth desecrates those temples. It shows that their idols are made of clay. But remember, even the destruction of idols is an act of grace. The soul must be stripped of its pretenses before it can encounter the divine. Thus, your honesty, though despised, is sacred work. You are participating in the eternal drama of light-piercing darkness. I must warn you, this path will test you. There will be moments when you wish you could return to the comfort of pretense. You will feel the weight of isolation. You will see how the world rewards flattery and punishes sincerity. You will watch people twist your words, project their wounds upon you, accuse you of cruelty for merely naming what is real. But know this, their hatred is proof of your light. The soul resists its own awakening by attacking the messenger. Do not take it personally. You are simply standing too close to their sleeping God. Every act of honesty is an act of rebellion against the unconscious collective. It is an eruption of the self through the crust of conformity. In that eruption lies both danger and liberation. Danger because it threatens the fragile order of society. Liberation because it reconnects you to the source of being. Those who cannot yet face their own soul will always attempt to silence those who can. But no power can extinguish the truth once it is born. It may be buried, mocked, distorted, but it cannot die, for truth belongs not to man, but to eternity. So I tell you this, if they hate your honesty, let them. Their hatred is the heat of purification. You are burning away the lies not only in them, but in yourself. The very rejection you face is part of your initiation. You are being tempered by the fire of authenticity. And when the flames subside, what remains is incorruptible. You become what the ancients called soul invictus, the unconquered son of the soul. The moment honesty touches another human being, it awakens what is buried in them. The unconscious begins to stir. A person may not even understand why they feel hostility toward you. They simply sense danger. And indeed, you are dangerous not to their life, but to their illusion. You carry the vibration of disillusionment, and the ego trembles before it. Most people have built their identity upon a story that protects them from pain. They wear smiles, that conceal fear, ambitions that disguise insecurity, religiosity that hides despair. The honest presence unmasks all of this, and so instinctively they attack. Their hatred is a form of self-defense. The psyche defends its dream from awakening. Yet this confrontation is necessary, for only through such tension can growth occur. The opposites, truth and lie, light and shadow, must meet, clash, and reconcile. Every person who enters your life becomes a mirror of your own unconscious. When someone hates your honesty, they reveal their own shadow. But beware, you too are not free from this law. The hatred of others can awaken your own shadow as well. You may begin to resent their blindness, to feel superior in your truth. That is ego disguised as enlightenment. The shadow of the truth teller is pride, and pride is the most subtle lie of all. True honesty is humble. It knows that truth does not belong to any one person. You do not own truth, you serve it. The moment you believe you possess it, you have already lost it. Truth is not an object. It is a living fire that burns through the one who carries it. It is larger than your opinions, your convictions, even your suffering. It demands surrender. To live honestly is to continually die to yourself, to let go of certainty and stand naked before the mystery. Every day, the honest soul must confess, I may have been wrong. This humility keeps the fire pure. Without it, your honesty turns into a weapon rather than a light. There is a stage in the individuation process I call the shadow confrontation. It occurs when the conscious ego meets what it has repressed, the dark, unlived, rejected aspects of the personality. For many, this confrontation is unbearable. Dreams become chaotic, filled with serpents, fires, collapsing houses. These are not punishments, they are revelations. The dream says, you can no longer lie to yourself. The serpent symbolizes instinct, the raw, coiled energy of life that has been denied. The collapsing house is the disintegration of the false self. The fire is the purifying power of honesty that consumes what is no longer real. When you begin to live honestly, you invite this inner fire. It will destroy what must die. Old identities, friendships built on convenience, careers built on pretense, they will fall away. The ego will grieve, for it loves its structures, even if they are prisons. But beneath the rubble lies the soul, waiting. In this sacred chaos, something greater is born, authenticity. To be authentic is not to be perfect, it is to be whole. Wholeness includes both light and shadow, both truth and illusion, consciously embraced. That is the paradox of the self. It transcends opposition by containing it. Do not expect the world to celebrate this transformation. The collective consciousness prefers the familiar, even if it is false. When you become authentic, you cease to belong in the same way. You will feel misunderstood, perhaps abandoned, yet solitude is the crucible of the self. Only in solitude can you hear the voice of the soul clearly. The crowd speaks in noise, the soul whispers in silence. That silence is not emptiness, it is fullness waiting to be heard. In that silence, honesty becomes love. For once you no longer lie to yourself, you no longer need to lie to anyone else. Compassion arises naturally when illusion dies. The greatest irony is that those who hate your honesty secretly long for it. They sense its power deep down. They wish they could be as free. Their anger is envy in disguise, envy of your liberation. But freedom cannot be given. It must be chosen. You cannot force anyone to awaken. You can only embody truth so deeply that your presence becomes a silent invitation. Some will respond with fear, others with admiration, and a rare few will join you in the fire. These are your kindred spirits, the ones who dare to see and be seen. When such souls meet, honesty becomes communion. There's no pretense, no manipulation, no facade, only being. This is what I call the union of souls. But the path there is steep. To remain honest amidst hostility requires inner strength. That strength comes not from arrogance, but from alignment with the self, the divine center of the psyche. The self is the axis around which all opposites revolve. It is the still point in the storm. When you are connected to the self, you can face the hatred of the world without retaliation. You see, through the projections, you recognize that their attacks are cries of pain. And so you respond not with defense, but with presence. The truth does not need to argue. It simply is. The sun does not explain itself to the shadow it shines. In the alchemical tradition, this process was called nigredo, the blackening. It is the first stage of transformation, where the old substance decays to make way for new life. Psychological honesty initiates this nigredo. It darkens your world at first, because it exposes every lie you depended on. The marriage, the job, the beliefs, the very sense of self, all dissolve. You may feel lost, even broken, but remember, the darkness is not punishment. It is preparation. The seed must rot before it can sprout. The ego must collapse before the self can emerge. What looks like destruction is alchemy in motion. In that darkness, dreams become your teachers. You may dream of wandering through endless corridors, unable to find the exit. That is the unconscious showing you the maze of your own falsehoods. Or you may dream of drowning, gasping for air. That is the psyche releasing the suffocating lies it once called identity. The waters cleanse you. Eventually, the dream shifts. You begin to breathe underwater. That is the moment of integration. You have accepted what once terrified you. Honesty has transformed fear into wisdom. This process cannot be rushed. The psyche unfolds like nature, in seasons, not seconds. There's winter, in the soul as much as in the earth. Do not curse the cold when it comes. The winter of the spirit is when honesty deepens its roots. It strips you bare so that in spring you may bloom with truth. But even the bloom will not be permanent. The rhythm of death and rebirth continues. Honesty is not a destination. It is a continual dying into truth. To live this way is to live consciously, to participate in the eternal unfolding of being. You will notice as you progress that your relationships change profoundly. Some people will vanish from your life without explanation. Others will return in new form, humbled, transformed by their own trials. Do not chase either loss or return. Let honesty guide your connections. It will bring to you only those who resonate with your frequency of truth. The rest must fall away, as leaves fall from the tree in autumn. The tree does not mourn the leaf, it trusts the cycle. So must you. I once wrote that no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. This means that no one can embody truth unless they first face the full depth of their own darkness. The more honest you become, the more you will see the abyss within jealousy, greed, fear, desire. But in the seeing, you are freed. The abyss, when faced, becomes the womb of light. What was once hell transforms into fertile soil for the soul, and those who once hated your honesty will begin, in time, to feel its strange blessing. Some will come back to you years later, saying, "You were right, though I couldn't see it then." That is the quiet vindication of the truth bringer. Not triumph, but fulfillment. You will learn that honesty is not about being blunt or harsh. It is about being transparent to the divine that speaks through you. Sometimes that divine voice is fierce. Sometimes it is gentle. It burns and it heals. It cuts and it mends. To channel it well, you must purify your own motives. Ask yourself, am I speaking truth to awaken or to wound? The first liberates, the second enslaves. Many hide cruelty behind the mask of honesty. But true honesty is rooted in love, not sentimental love, but the fierce love that wants the soul to awaken. And so, if they hate your honesty, bless them, for their hatred reveals the power of your light. You have become an agent of transformation in their lives. Whether they realize it or not, some seeds sprout only after a long winter. Your words, your presence, may germinate in them years later. The soul has its own timing. Trust that timing. Continue your work. Continue burning with truth. The world needs more fires that purify rather than consume. When you have lived long enough in truth, you begin to see the strange alchemy of it. What once felt like isolation begins to feel like initiation. The rejection you once mourned becomes revelation, for you come to realize that every person who resisted your honesty was, unknowingly, your teacher. They exposed the last fragments of illusion within you, the need to be understood, the desire to be approved, the secret hunger for validation, that still chained you to the collective dream. And when these chains finally break, you discover a freedom so vast that even solitude becomes luminous. You begin to see that honesty is not merely about telling the truth, it is about being the truth. It is not about moral superiority, but about alignment with what is. When you are truly honest, your words no longer come from the ego's mouth, they come from the soul's silence. This silence is not empty, it is full of presence, full of knowing that transcends argument. You no longer need to defend the truth, you simply radiate it. This is the stage where honesty becomes mystical, no longer personal, but archetypal. You have become the vessel through which the archetype of the truth-bearer expresses itself in human form. And yet, even here, the shadow remains near. For there is a subtle temptation, the temptation of the martyr. Many truth-bearers, after being rejected, fall into bitterness. They confuse their wound with their mission. They begin to love their suffering more than the truth itself. This is a grave danger. The ego is cunning. When it cannot be adored, it will settle for being persecuted. But the moment your honesty becomes a badge of superiority, it ceases to be pure. The fire must remain clean. The alchemist must not identify with the crucible. You must understand, those who hate your honesty are not your enemies. They are fragments of the same psyche that you are healing. Humanity is one vast organism, and every honest word you speak travels through that collective body like a current of light. It awakens cells that have slept for centuries. But as the current flows, it also encounters resistance, the old wounds, the hardened defenses of the species. These resistances appear as hostility, but they are part of the healing process. You are not fighting them, you are transforming them. This is why I often said the psychological problem of the individual is at the same time the problem of humanity. Your personal honesty participates in a cosmic work. When you speak truth in a world of falsehood, you are not just helping yourself, you are serving the evolution of consciousness itself. You are one spark in the great fire that burns through history, the fire that Moses saw in the bush, the fire that descended at Pentecost, the same fire that alchemists called ignis noster, our sacred flame. To live in this flame is not easy. It will burn away everything that is not essential. But when the ashes settle, something extraordinary remains: serenity. You no longer need to convince anyone. You no longer argue. You simply see. You see how everyone lies, not because they are evil, but because they are afraid. You see how deception is merely a shield against annihilation. You see that the liar is also the child who once told the truth and was punished for it. With that seeing comes compassion. And compassion is the highest form of honesty. At this point, your presence itself becomes a kind of therapy. People who once feared your gaze now find themselves strangely drawn to it. They feel that near you, their masks can finally fall. They confess without being asked. They cry without understanding why. That is because your honesty has become love. Love, in its highest form, is the capacity to see without judgment. The gaze of such a soul is terrifying only to the ego. To the heart, it is salvation. But remember, the world will not change all at once. Darkness does not vanish when light appears. It retreats slowly, reluctantly. The collective shadow will continue to project itself upon you in different forms. Today it may be hatred, tomorrow indifference, another day adoration, which is simply another disguise of projection. Do not identify with any of it, whether they crucify you or crown you. Remain the witness. Both crown and cross belong to the same dream. You are the dreamer awakening within it. In the deeper layers of the psyche, there is a figure that emerges when honesty has fully matured, the wise old man or sage archetype. This figure represents the union of opposites, clarity and compassion, power and humility, word and silence. When you embody this energy, you become not a preacher of truth, but a presence of truth. You speak less, but every word carries weight. You act less, but every gesture radiates, meaning people may still hate your honesty, but you will see their hatred as a child's fear of light. You will no longer feel wounded by it. For the sage knows that the world's resistance is simply the psyche's way of protecting its slow transformation. There is a dream I once had that revealed this mystery. I stood in a vast cathedral, dark and empty, its walls covered in soot. In the center burned a small candle, its flame barely alive. I felt a great sadness, for the light seemed too small to dispel such darkness. Then I heard a voice, not outside, but within. Do not seek to brighten the world. Guard the flame. It will grow by itself. I woke with tears in my eyes. That dream taught me what no philosophy could. The purpose of honesty is not to illuminate the entire world, but to keep the inner flame alive. You must understand this if you wish to endure. Do not measure the value of your honesty by the reactions it provokes. The flame is enough. If one person awakens because of it, the universe rejoices, even if no one does. The act of burning itself is sacred. You keep the fire alive for those who will come after you. Truth is timeless. It does not die when unrecognized. It waits, patient as the stars. As your journey deepens, honesty begins to reveal an even more profound paradox. It exposes the illusion of honest and dishonest altogether. For at the deepest level, even the lie serves truth. The lie is simply truth not yet realized. It is the soul's attempt to survive in ignorance until it is ready to see. When you grasp this, jugement dissolve. You no longer see sinners and saints, only souls at different stages of awakening. You no longer fight darkness. You integrate it. You no longer burn others with your truth. You warm them. This is the final alchemy. When the fire of honesty becomes light instead of flame, in the beginning, honesty destroys. It burns through masks, illusions, relationships. But as consciousness refines, honesty begins to illuminate instead. It no longer seeks to expose, it seeks to reveal. It becomes creative. Your words heal rather than wound. Your presence awakens rather than condemns. This is when honesty and love become indistinguishable. You have united the opposites, the sword and the chalice, the fire and the water, the masculine and feminine within. You have become whole, and from that wholeness, a new kind of silence emerges. Not the silence of repression, but the silence of knowing. It is the silence of the self contemplating its own reflection in the world. You watch the play of lies and truth, of egos and shadows, and you smile. You see that everything, even deception, is part of the great dance of awakening. And in that smile, the hatred of others loses its sting. You are beyond their projections now. You have become the mirror that reflects the eternal without distortion. At the end of every journey into truth, the seeker discovers that what he was chasing was not something external at all. The light he sought to defend was the same light burning silently within his own soul. And so, after all the wars of honesty, the confrontations, the rejections, the burnings and rebuildings, a strange peace descends. You no longer fight to be understood. You no longer burn to be right. You realize that truth does not need defenders, only witnesses. You become that witness. This is the sacred reconciliation. Honesty no longer stands in opposition to falsehood, because it has transcended the duality that gave rise to conflict in the first place. When the ego still governs honesty, it fights. It says, I must correct, I must prove, I must awaken others. But when the self governs honesty, it simply is. It shines without intention. It breathes without purpose. Its light does not argue. It reveals. There is a moment, subtle and difficult to describe, when you sense that the very hatred of others, their resistance, their projections, their blindness is part of a greater design. You see that the opposition itself was necessary to complete the alchemy. Without resistance, your truth would never have deepened. Without misunderstanding, your compassion would never have been born. The fire of conflict was the forge through which your soul was shaped. You see now that they were not your enemies at all, but your reflections, your forgotten selves, returning to teach you patience, tenderness, and humility. This realization marks the true birth of wisdom. Wisdom is not knowledge. It is understanding transfigured by love. And love, at its highest vibration, is radical. Honesty made gentle. It is truth spoken through the heart rather than the mouth. The honest soul who has become wise no longer seeks to expose the darkness. He embraces it, illumines it softly, as one would hold a frightened child, for he knows that the liar is not evil, he is only afraid. The shadow is not wicked, it is only wounded. When you see this, you stop fighting darkness and begin healing it. In this stage, your honesty ceases to be a sword. It becomes a lamp. It guides rather than cuts. It blesses rather than confronts. And yet, paradoxically, it still burns, but now the fire is warm, not scalding. It no longer consumes others. It invites them. The world that once rejected you now begins to find peace in your presence. Some might never admit it, but they feel it. They begin to awaken, not because you preach to them, but because you simply are. The most powerful truth is silent. The ancient alchemists knew this final transformation well. They called it the rubedo, the reddening, the final phase when the purified matter glows with inner gold. Psychologically, this is the integration of opposites, the marriage of conscious and unconscious, spirit and matter, light and shadow. When this happens, your honesty no longer divides, it unites. You become what I once described as the self-realized individual, a being who carries the light of awareness through the depths of human contradiction. In this state, you no longer live by reaction, you live by revelation. Life becomes symbolic. Every encounter, even hatred, becomes an image of your own psyche. Reflected outward, every insult becomes a message from the divine. Every betrayal, a mirror of forgotten pain, still waiting to be redeemed. This does not make you passive. It makes you deeply awake. You respond not from the ego's defense, but from the soul's insight. Your honesty now serves the unfolding of life itself. But make no mistake, even at this stage, the work does not end. The psyche is infinite, and the self is a mystery that cannot be exhausted. There will always be new shadows emerging, new depths to explore. The difference is that now, if you welcome them, you do not fear what arises. You meet it with the same clarity and tenderness you once reserved for others. You have learned that everything in you, even the parts that once lied, feared, hated, were always striving toward wholeness. When you speak now, your words no longer come from personal will, they come from the rhythm of the eternal within you. You have become the voice of the living psyche, the logos clothed in human form. Your honesty has become a revelation of the divine order hidden within chaos. The world will still react, for every age resists its prophets, but you will no longer suffer from that resistance. You will stand at the still center of your own being, knowing that their hatred, too, is part of the cosmic dance. Sometimes those who once despised you will seek you out. They will come quietly, perhaps years later, carrying the ashes of their illusions, and they will ask you how you endured. And you will not speak of philosophy or psychology. You will simply say, I stopped lying to myself. They may not understand the depth of those words, but they will feel them. And in that feeling, their own honesty will begin to awaken. That is how truth spreads, not through argument, but through resonance. And one day, you will look back upon the long past, the loneliness, the rejections, the tears, to the burning, and you will see that it was all sacred. You will see that honesty was never a burden, it was grace disguised as fire. It burned away the false so that you could discover what cannot be destroyed. It stripped you of pretense so that love could find a vessel pure enough to dwell within. You will realize that honesty was not about others at all. It was about returning home to yourself. The final stage of transformation is surrender. You no longer seek to be honest. You simply are, without effort, without self-consciousness. Truth has become your nature. The boundaries between you and life dissolve. You see yourself everywhere, in the liar and the saint, in the tyrant and the child, in the hatred and in the love. The universe becomes transparent. There is no longer they who hate your honesty, and you who speak it. There's only consciousness looking at itself through different eyes. This is what mystics called gnosis, and what I, in my own language, called individuation, fulfilled the soul united with its source. It is not bliss in the sentimental sense. It is a still, luminous knowing that all things, even deception and destruction, serve the unfolding of wholeness. It is not an escape from humanity, but its deepest embrace. You walk among men, but you are no longer bound by their illusions. You love them more deeply because you see them as yourself. At this point, honesty becomes indistinguishable from compassion. You can look at a liar and see not deceit, but pain. You can look at hatred and see fear. You can look at your own flaws and see divine play. The dualities collapse. You are both the mirror and the reflection, both the fire and the one purified by it. And in that unity, peace dawns, not as an emotion, but as a vibration of being. This is the destiny of every soul that dares to live honestly. It begins with a whisper of courage and ends with the silence of divinity. It starts with the burning of lies and ends with the stillness of truth. Many will never understand your journey. They are not meant to. The seed cannot comprehend the tree. It will become, but one day, every soul must pass through this fire, for the lies we live by cannot endure forever. Sooner or later, the soul demands truth, and in that demand, the universe answers with you, the one who dared to burn. So let them hate your honesty if they must. Let them call you arrogant, difficult, dangerous. Do not defend yourself. Simply continue to live in truth. For the truth is not yours, it is you. And one day, when their illusions have crumbled and their hearts have grown weary of deception, they will remember the light you carried. They will recall how your words, though painful, never left them, and then, in the quiet of their own awakening, they will whisper what once terrified them. You were right, but by then it will not matter. You will not need vindication, for you will have become what you were seeking all along, the eternal witness, the flame that burns without consuming, the consciousness that loves through every form. And in that timeless moment, you will understand the true purpose of honesty, not to change the world, but to awaken it Because to awaken even one soul, beginning with your own, is to set eternity itself ablaze